Round 4 of the championship was at the Hungaroring on the outskirts of Budapest. With the air temperature 35 degrees and climbing, the rolling start reflected grid positions that were all set in the cool morning air, with the exception of Sascha Masson in third place. Pole position had gone to the returning Giro Karl Wendlinger and Olivier Beretta in the number 1 Viper, with teammates Belloc and Depoy alongside, and the Rook Porsche leapfrogging his teammate Stefan Ortelli to grab third place going into turn 1. But as the number 3 Porsche had electrical problems and dropped back, Jean-Philippe Belloc also made an early pit stop, suffering from the heat. So it was Dominic Dupoy who narrowly avoided the spinning number 33 Viper. Then the number 4 Porsche of Andre Arle spun while trying to pass the Freisinger car as the tight and twisty circuit caught out several drivers, including some of the front runners. At the second pit stop, the second place number 1 Viper had a problem with an airlock in the refuelling rig, probably just because of the high ambient temperatures. And the number 2 car passed pit lane to resume the race lead. As Wendlinger left the pits after a 3-minute stop, 1 lap down, Jean-Philippe Belloc was almost 2 laps ahead when he spun while passing the Conrad Porsche, but managed to recover. The heat and the success ballast was taking its toll, and the number 1 car had a similar moment of excitement while passing the number 15 Freisinger car. He too was lucky enough to recover with no damage done. Stefan Ortelli was another one who tripped up into the gravel and was able to continue. But for the second consecutive race, the number 2 Viper took checkered flag honours ahead of its teammate, a 4th formation finish for Orica, and the second in that order. Victory for the number 2 Viper made sure that Jean-Philippe Belloc stayed on top of the points table, with his Orica teammates crowding the rest of the top 6 positions. Behind them, the rest of the Viper drivers are mixing it with the Porsches for their place in the points. But so far, this is a Viper benefit, especially a blue and white one. Now we come to round 5 at Zolder in Belgium, the midway point of the series, and the third tight and twisty circuit of the season. The front straight leads to a corner that's faster than it looks on the map, but still slow enough to create plenty of overtaking opportunities. But it's not for the faint-hearted. It's the big corner here, and it takes guts and commitment. It tightens on the exit and leads into a tight right, which demands a good exit with power on early. The long, fast section that follows is vital for a good lap. It's all flat out along here, and at most the next right is a confidence lift, but that should be avoided. This is the longest and fastest section of the circuit, and a good exit will give the faster cars their chance to pass before they arrive at the chicane. Slow in, fast out. A tight apex on the entry and straight through, taking a little curve, but not too much. That's always the rule here. Then comes the complex little chicane installed at Villeneuve in what was a fast corner. Slow in and early on the gas is the motto as you accelerate away uphill. The exit's the important part, and you can stay on the gas through the next right and all the way downhill over the crest. Hard braking is called for here, and once again the exit's important. Staying away from the curves on the way out is the good advice, or time and power will be soaked up. Almost home now. Straight line that last chicane, and the final corner is blind until the turn-in, and there will be some overtaking attempts here because the entry is so slow, and it's put in early for the run past the pits. That's the circuit the drivers have to deal with. It is tight in places, but it's also got a couple of decent straights, so it shouldn't be too much of a problem for the cars carrying success ballast, except in the brake department. The leading Vipers, and we're talking Orica, are both carrying close on 100 kilos extra, pretty much the situation the rules were designed for. But the strange thing is that it's the Conrad and Freisinger Porsches which are carrying the next biggest loads. At any stage of the race, you always know who's driving the RWS Porsche. It's always Horst Felbermayr, one half of a name-sharing father and son pairing.
It's very good because we have no problems together, because in other teams maybe the drivers, they have not so a good feeling together, and it's very good to have the family.
Back in action after missing the previous round is the two-car Lister team, with Mike Hazeman and David Hart once again pairing up in the black and silver number 34, but well down the grid after having brake problems during qualifying. On board in the number 8 Havatha Porsche, as qualifying went wrong for the team, the car suddenly slowing to a halt on track. From outside, the problem was easy to see. The left rear wheel had worked loose and was in danger of coming off completely. They weren't the only ones in trouble. Running on home ground here at Zolder, just a few miles from home base, GLPK were hoping for great things, but their qualifying effort was interrupted by this spin, which brought the red flags out for a few minutes while gravel was swept from the track. Knowing this would be the toughest race so far, the Orica team concentrated all its efforts on finding a setup and a fuel strategy that would take the overweight Vipers to the end of the race, and they were well down the grid.
No, I mean, it will be more traffic, of course, and it's not so easy to overtake in this track. But yesterday we worked for the race because now we have 90 kilos more than normally. So that makes a problem for us in the braking, in acceleration. So yesterday we concentrated to work on that, because now the 90 kilo starts to be very easy.
So heavy that the number 2 car outbraked itself halfway through the session and brought out the red flags again, though the damage was not too serious and it was repaired overnight.
We know the Porsche, the Lister, the Marcus are very competitive, more and more, and we have to accept that there is no more, not only Vipers at the start. It will be a tough race, but I'm sure we will be with them tomorrow.
The Chamberlain team also worked through the night, replacing an engine that was flown in specially. With no weight penalty and no problems, Niamarim qualified the number 18 car ahead of the Orica pairing on the grid. In front of him, despite this massive grass-cutting exercise, was the number 11 Marcos of Port Oyster and Herman Berman. The oldest car in the pit lane still, but competitive on a track the team knows very well.
Well, we did some running here before with Belcar, which is a very busy championship as well, but it will be quite hard, you know, especially with these temperatures. It's over 30 and over 60 in the car.
Just ahead of Oyster on the timesheet and the grid was the number 6 Conrad Porsche, which really has got into the groove over the past couple of races. Minus Bob Wallach this weekend, the second seat was taken by Alfred Hager. Running a reduced team with no number 3 car and no Stefan Ortelli, the Rock team managed to match its best ever qualifying position with a front row start for a race that promised to be very close.
I think we are for the very first time able to make it up to the very, very top because of FIA and the new regulations, the additional weight in the Chrysler Viper car, which I think is about 90 kilos, and this track here is basically killing the brakes.
Pole position for the first time in an international race went to the Lister team. Julian Bailey putting the number 25 car on the money, with every chance that they'd finally be able to convert a good qualifying time into a race win.
The car's going very quick actually, and we've got a good chance in the race. Reliability obviously always a bit of an issue, but we had an engine problem overnight. We had to fly some things out here to fix that, and they've done it, and it's going really well in the warm-up.
The Oreca Vipers back down the grid behind the Chamberlain car, a Porsche on the front row and a Lister on pole. This one will be interesting. As temperatures at Zolder soar up into the 30s, this will be another long, hard race for the crews, just like it was in Hungary, only this time the Lister is here and in pole position. Hubert Haupt put the Rock Porsche on the front row, but Claudia Hürtgen, a refugee from the missing number 3 car, will start for the first hour. Koreuser will start his car, the number 11 Marcos, not his usual number 10, but with his usual partner, Herman Berman. Times at the front of the grid are very close, just tenths of a second separating the leading cars. And there are only hundredths of a second between the Conrad Porsche and the Marcos on road 2. Back on road 3, we step into the 35s with the first of the Oreca cars, qualified at what they expect will be the race pace this afternoon. Once again, almost all the grid times were set in the morning session when the track was cooler. But Oreca suspect that even their 35s will be faster than the race. Expect 36s, they think, as the pace-setting laps. And if they're right, then all they have to worry about is a little bit of traffic between them and the checkered flag. Also, expect the ballast to play a big part in this. Not only will it be hard on brakes that already have to work hard here, but it will also affect fuel consumption as well. There's a good chance the heaviest Vipers will only be able to show some speed as their fuel load lightens and they can see themselves safely inside their pit stop window. Up front, expect the Lister to go for it. Julian Bailey starting from pole position with their best shot at a race win yet. Rock Porsche still looking for their first chance to score a win, the only team to beat the Vipers last year. But this is the moment we're waiting for. They come over the crest. The course car has pulled into one side. The green light comes on and round 5 is go. Start the race now. We're on board with Vincent Voss in the number 33 Viper as we run down towards that first turn. Fast and furious here. A brave corner indeed. Starting from the pit lane, the number 5 Rock Porsche and the number 8 Tabitha car back on board with Vincent Voss in the corner, right behind Wolfgang Kaufmann, and that seemed like a touch on the outside, and off into the grass we go. No harm done, except the rest of the pack has gone. Julian Bailey leads it, number 25, out in front. It is Claudia Hürtgen behind in second place, and then a big dust cloud as we take a little bit too much curve. Lister from Porsche, Conrad Porsche is in third place. Then it's Koreuser in the Marcos, and behind that, Nii Amorim in the Chamberlain Viper. Then the two Oreca cars together. But look at the way that Claudia Hürtgen is getting all excited behind Julian Bailey. She wants to get into the lead of this race, and there's a good chance she might do so. Remember, the FIA rules were changed to allow the Porsches just a little bit more horsepower a couple of weekends ago. Now is about the time when you'd expect to see that come into play as teams really start to get to grips with it. 25, Julian Bailey in the Lister. 4, the Rock Porsche of Claudia Hürtgen. 6, the Conrad Porsche, driven at the moment by Alfred Hager. Koreuser in the Marcos. Nii Amorim in the Chamberlain car. On board with Alfred Hager right up the tailpipe of the Rock Porsche. out onto the start-finish straight. Lister leads, and they are still nose to tail. It is very close indeed. Tyres up to temperature now. Fuel load very heavy indeed. Number 1 Viper ahead of the number 2 car. Olivier Beretta leads Marc Duez. Here's what happened to Vincent Voss. There's the Freisinger car. A little bit of a touch there. He was unsettled. The nose was swinging. He got it all back together again. Tucked in behind him, and just look on the left. Just a glimpse of yellow Viper. I suspect that was the number 22 car of Stefan Widman. And I think there was a touch, and off went Vincent Voss. He's back in the race now, although having lost a lot of ground, as Niamarem starts to get all agitated behind poor Oiser. Now, Oiser knows his way around this circuit. The Marcus is already a fairly big car, but as you can see, he's doing his job, making it as wide as he can. He's not weaving from side to side. He's just using that line very effectively to hang on to the position. And it's the best showing for the Marcos all year. And what a showing, really, for the oldest car on the racetrack. The new one still delayed by problems with the gearbox. It's always been the Achilles heel of this car, and they definitely want to get that right before they go racing with the new Mantara. Niamarem in the Chamberlain Viper, looking for a way past. Up front, he can see the others clearing off into the distance. He doesn't want that to happen. The Marcos not as fast as the front runners, and Amorim really wants to get on with this race, and he doesn't want to be slowed up by the Marcos. Julian Bailey leads Claudia Hürtgen ahead of Alfred Hager, Cor Oiser. Niamarem looking for an opportunity. Behind that, Olivier Beretta and Marc Duez, the Orica Vipers. On board, we're with Michel Neugarten. Back marker time, we're way down in 18th place, but the racing no less fast and furious. And among the Porsches, this is where a lot of the excitement happens. Reliability always a problem for them. And look at Coroiser locking up those brakes. Well, Niamarem putting him under a lot of pressure, and you can see just how hard he's having to work. Amorim can still see the front runners making a little bit of distance. They're pulling away from Alfred Hager as well, but unless he can get past the Marcos, and he has got Orica cars queuing up behind him. Has a look now through the chicane. This is going to be his opportunity, coming out onto the front straight. He wants the best exit he can get alongside Cor Oiser, but Oiser just holds that line. I know where I belong, and I'm not moving an inch. Nothing the Amorim can do about that. But the front straight is next, and this could be his chance. In the slipstream, hard on the gas. Can he late break the Marcos? Goes to the inside. He's won the corner already. He's through, and the Chamberlain car moves up one place. Oiser goes down to 5th, and Niamarem goes up into 4th place. We go back on board with Michel Neugarten as he follows Gerald Reed in the Proton car. We're talking about 16th and 17th now as Neugarten gets a move on. Started from the pit lane, remember. And here he comes. Dives over the slipstream. Through he goes. That's another place. Anxious to be getting on with it. Marcos now with more Vipers waiting for their opportunity as Niamarem moves up one place and starts to badger Alfred Hager in the number 6 Conrad Porsche. They'll be looking to move past him. You can see that there's a gap in front of Hager, and you can see that ahead of him, Julian Bailey and Claudia Hürtgen have disappeared up the road. They are clearing off, and Niamarem wants to go with them. Just a glimpse of the number 4 car there, and you can see the amount of space there is between second and third, and this is the battle over third place. The race only a few laps old. And here goes Amorim, just exactly the same move on Alfred Hager as he pulled on Cor Oiser, and through he goes. That's third place. He can see the tail end of Claudia Hürtgen and the Rock Porsche, and that will be his target now. got a bit of ground to make up. He's got an empty track ahead of him. All he's got to do is keep it nice and neat. That really is the secret round here. Stay off the curves. They really do rob a lot of power from the cars. They take time, and it's better to stay on the tarmac most of the time than it is to take curves, except you can see there are just a couple of places where they're nice and flat. And the Viper, Mark Duez getting very excited behind Koreuser. And he's sticking to that line, and there's just not enough room to get a Viper alongside on either side. He's doing his job, Koreuser. He's not supposed to make it easy for people to pass him, even if they are championship leaders. And up on the inside, that was Stefan Widman, and I think he might have got that place. He has indeed. He's passed Olivier Beretta. Well, that was cheeky stuff, wasn't it? But he's nipped through. While Olivier Beretta was busy waiting to see whether Duez was going to get past the Marcos, Stefan Widman came poking up on the inside and grabbed the place off him. Freisinger Porsche behind the Viper. It's the usual suspect. We're back on board with Michel Neugarten. And slowing as something seems to have gone wrong. We saw him lose a wheel earlier on, and that had the same look. Oh, that's what's gone wrong. Back into the car, very much in flames. Michel Neugarten looking for the nearest marshal's post. Let's stop near a fire extinguisher. Good plan, that is. Out of the car as fast as he can, and the extinguishers in action. Cloud of smoke across the racetrack. Often looks worse than it is, but that was very much on fire as Koreuser now defends against Stefan Widman, who has closed right up behind him. Well, Mark Duez has got past. Olivier Beretta couldn't. Widman passed Beretta. The Marcos now is, and so has Wolfgang Kaufmann. Olivier Beretta goes back another place. Well, he's down in 9th place as they go past the smoke screen laid down by Michel Neugarten, and that's not really part of the Orica game plan at all. Well, it's carrying 90 kilos, and it may well be running to a strategy, but this really isn't part of the plot for Olivier Beretta and Orica. Now waiting for Stefan Widman to make his move, but it doesn't happen at the end of the front straight where you would have expected. He was right up underneath the rear wing of the Marcos, follows him through that big turn. Get this one right now, gas it up early, because it's all fast from here on in. This is what we want now, is a good drive out of this corner. And Widman still can't find his way through. Close up behind, and we're all still jockeying for position as here he comes round the outside. Well, he sold in the dummy very nicely indeed. Nothing Koreuser could have done about that at all. He picked his line, and Widman picked a different one. Through he goes, grabbed the place. Wolfgang Kaufmann closing up on the Marcos. Olivier Beretta is behind that. Don't forget that up front, Julian Bailey in the Lister, unseen by us, is clearing off into the middle distance. Claudia Hürtgen is going with him, but it is Lister who lead this race from the number 4 Porsche of Claudia Hürtgen in second place. But all the battling going on here as this queue of cars tries to get past Koreuser, who has no obligation to get out of their way at all. He's racing for position as well, and you can see he is just starting to get a little bit naughty here. Well, he's making it wide, but that was bordering on a swerve then. And Koreuser, I think, is going to have to bite the bullet and let Wolfgang Kaufmann go. Perhaps not here at the end of this straight, but very shortly Kaufmann's going to get past. The race is happening in front of Euser, and he's done a superb job with a very ancient car in racing terms at least. And now you can see that Stefan Widman in the Belmondo Viper, the violently coloured yellow and purple car, is disappearing away from him. So he's really got to give best to the quicker cars. And just takes a lot of curb there. That should give Wolfgang Kaufmann the opportunity he needs. He's alongside. Beretta wants to go with him. I don't think he'll make it, no. Reuser claims the corner, but he just grabbed a bit too much curve there, recovered it nicely, but he didn't get the power down as hard as the Porsche, and through goes Wolfgang Kaufmann. And Reuser trying to stay with him now. He's not letting him run away with it. Well, he's making a race of it all the way through. Tremendous enjoyment for everybody trying to get past. And tremendous frustration as well, I should imagine. Kaufmann is through. There is the number 4 car in second place. Up front, ahead of Claudia Hürtgen, is the yellow number 25, Lister Storm, the race leader. And in third place there, you can see the number 18 Chamberlain car of Niamarin, big gap. And there is the number 2 Viper. And then the 21 car of Stefan Widmann, up one more place ahead of number 1. Lister leads it then from the Rock Porsche and the Chamberlain Viper. It's very early days yet in a 3-hour race, but maybe the success ballast has levelled the playing field a little more completely than the Orica team expected. Julian Bailey and the Lister lead this race from the Rock Porsche of Claudia Hürtgen, but the number 10 Marcos of Hans Willems has made a very early pit stop, handing over to Vincent Dupont. Everything here looks normal, but this is well outside the fuel window. Very early stop indeed, long before anybody else. Kreisinger, number 15, in 7th place ahead of the number 1 Viper. In 8th place, 11. In 9th place, that's Reuser. 19 behind is the second of the Chamberlain cars. And here comes 33, Vincent Voss, moving up on the Belmondo Viper of Claude-Yves Gosselin to take 11th place. Remember, he's recovering after that spin on the second corner of lap 1. And moving up through the field, possibly tapped by one of the Belmondo cars, not quite sure, didn't see from the onboard, but certainly having to work at it now. That is Alfred Hager in the Conrad Porsche ahead of the number 22 Viper of Stefan Widmann, and behind that Kreisinger, and here comes Olivier Beretta. He has decided that the time is now. It's entirely possible that Beretta is now comfortable with his fuel situation. He'll be looking at the dashboard, talking to the team on the radio, and it's entirely possible that he's now happy that he's going to make his fuel window. And as the weight decreases, and look at that, oh, wide went Wolfgang Kaufmann, and through went Olivier Beretta to grab 7th place. He was indeed starting to pressure. The fuel load must enable him to push a bit harder now, so here he comes, and it'll be interesting to see what Olivier Beretta can do now between this point of the race and the first fuel stops at the end of 1 hour. Got a few laps to go, and he might well make up a bit of ground. Stefan Widmann looking for his chance to pass the Conrad car. And here is Vincent Voss. We go on board with him now on the front straight as he dives down the inside of the number 11 Marcos. Holds the line. You need to keep it over to the left because there's another corner coming up. You see, it's all combination corners here at Zolder. They come thick and fast when they happen. And really and truthfully, you've got to take the first part of the combination corner steadily and get your power down for the exit. That's what it's all about, is come out carrying your speed. The number 6 Porsche ahead of Stefan Widmann, ahead of Olivier Beretta, but for how much longer? He's definitely sizing up the gap. He's on the inside. Widmann's got the corner though, and Beretta follows him through. And looks at the end. Oh, Widmann goes wide and gives Olivier Beretta just the faintest inkling of an opening, and he snatched that one, dived through. That was stern work from Olivier Beretta. Well, he is very much on it now, as opposed to being very much off it in the first half of the hour. But now as the fuel load goes down and the Viper becomes a little bit more drivable, the brakes start to work just a little bit better for him. And Olivier Beretta looking for the best position he can get before the first round of fuel stops. He's in 6th place at the moment, Olivier Beretta. That's not really where the erstwhile championship leader wants to be at this point of the halfway point of the season. His teammates still lead the series. They missed one round, had a bit of bad luck last time out. And that's the scheduled stop. That's the scheduled stop as Paul Oyser hands over the number 11 Marcos to Herman Berman. And that'll be a source of deep relief all round for the people who are queued up behind it. The Porsche is definitely looking much stronger now. It does seem as if the success ballast has slowed the Oreca cars, and that's the number 10 Marcos retiring, well, just before the first really scheduled fuel stop, or at the first scheduled fuel stop, because the number 11 car's been in. So it stopped early and it pits now out of it. But the 11 car still out there, still running on, as Vincent Dupont is pushed back into the box. This is Claudio Hürtgen in 2nd place, ahead of Nee Amorim in 3rd, Marc Duez in 4th place, and in the background it is Olivier Beretta who is 5th. But Marc Duez may not be content to stay exactly where he is. Nee Amorim's 3rd place appears to be in danger, as Marc Duez is also enjoying the benefit of that lightning fuel load, putting him on closer terms with the Chamberlain car. Through he goes. Watch him now. Grab that place as easy as you like. So the Lister still leads, remember. The number 4 Porsche you're looking at now is 2nd. Then it is Marc Duez, Nee Amorim and Olivier Beretta. So it's Lister, Porsche, and then a little queue of Vipers, Oreca, Chamberlain and Oreca. Pit stop time for the Proton car. Gerald Reed hands it over to Christian Reed. Number 4 is 2nd. Number 2 is 3rd. Number 18, 4th. And number 1 is 5th. This is all happening behind the race leader. The Lister enjoying an uneventful first hour. Uneventful, that is, except for leading the race as we close up on one of the tail enders, number 77, Ernst Palmberger, and through on the inside goes Olivier Beretta to grab Nee Amorim's 4th place. So the Porsche is 2nd, Marc Duez for Oreca is 3rd, and Olivier Beretta for Oreca is 4th. Nee Amorim for Chamberlain is in 5th place. And this is looking more like the kind of situation the Oreca team would like to see at the end of the first hour. They like to come in for the pit stops in the right position so that they can start heavy without having to catch up. Well, Claudia Hürtgen has driven an excellent race, but she's coming up behind Ernst Palmberger, and it's tempting to wonder how they will arrive behind him. Just where they pitch. Oh, she's not going to wait. Marc Duez not waiting to see whether the traffic interferes with Claudia Hürtgen or not. Dives through to grab 2nd place. So it's Lister in the lead from Oreca, Viper in 2nd place. Rock Porsche is in 3rd place, but it is an endangered 3rd place. There's no two ways about that. And here is Ernst Palmberger with a big queue. Now you'll see the blue flag start to wave in a minute for Ernst Palmberger, and everybody is going to try and grab the opportunity to make a place. Claudia Hürtgen's the one who's being threatened. Palmberger keeps it over to one side, and Olivier Beretta is on the inside, and Claudia Hürtgen closes the door. He has to stand on the brake. He tried and she wouldn't let him do it. And there's no reason on earth why she should have done. Excellent stuff, this very close racing. This is what the rules were designed to promote, and this is what you're seeing now as Claudia Hürtgen has a look down the inside of Marc Duez in the number 2 Viper. She wants that place back. Well, Palmberger keeping nicely out of the way. Nee Amorim coming through as well. And pit stop time for the number 2 car. a little bit early as past goes Olivier Beretta. That's his opportunity to grab the place from Claudio Hürtgen. He goes up to second, but that looked like a fairly early stop. And no change of driver, so maybe there was a problem there. Are we seeing an Achilles heel for the Orica team? They've certainly qualified slow. They've started slowly, taken their time to come up to race pace as their fuel load lights, and it may well be. And there's definitely a problem. Look at that. These are very worried faces in the Orica pits. And that looks as though something is wrong, and it's something they can't do anything about. You're looking at the number 33 Viper of Vanson Voss with Mike Hazeman behind the number 34 Lister. Remember, he made an appearance at Hockenheim, drove it very well indeed until the starter motor failed. And Orica waiting, and I think this is number 2 coming in. Yes, it is. The number 2 car returned. Well, they're going to make the driver change now. Marc Dures gets out of the car, but you can see from his body language there's a problem. He's telling Jean-Philippe Belloc exactly what it is. As these two continue to jostle for their position, but a nice late-braking move from Mike Hazeman skates the Lister past Vanson Voss in the number 33 GLPK Viper, as Jean-Philippe Belloc, the championship points leader at the moment, returns to the racetrack. And are we about to see his points lead threatened by a mechanical problem? Claudio Hürtgen being threatened by knee Amorim. And that's retirement. That's Belloc. It's all over for the number 2 car. So there will be a new points leader at the end of this race. You're looking at number 25, the Lister Storm, going into the pits. Julian Bailey, a faultless race from the pole position into his pit stop, hands it over in the lead. Lister have worked really hard this season. The car has improved race by race. It's always been quick. Now it appears to have the kind of reliability it needs to get it to the checkered flag. Julian Bailey handing over to Andy Wallace. Lawrence Pearce said it's always been his ambition to have Andy Wallace in his car. Very quick driver indeed. Should be a good second hour. Getting very busy out on the track now. Everybody looking for a position before they come in for the pit stops. Number 4 Porsche is in second place as Andy Wallace comes out of the pits. They've only changed the left-hand side tyres, and out goes the number 1 Viper. So pit stops very busy indeed. The Lister leads the race going into the pit stops, and when the race order settles down afterwards, we expect that position to be restored, especially after that very fast one-side change. And as the number 18 Viper comes into the pit, that leaves the local heroes in the number 33 car in the lead of the race, but they too still have to make their pit stop. The GLPK car leads this race because everyone else has made their pit stop, including now the number 4 Rock Porsche. But it's a short-lived glory because Vanson Voss has to stop now, and that will put Andy Wallace and the Lister back on top of the leaderboard ahead of Carl Wendlinger and Andre Arleg, and it will drop the number 33 car back down to its rightful place, around 7th or 8th position on the leaderboard, depending on the length of this pit stop. Didier Defourny waiting to climb in as they clean the screen, and just a touch wide there. Tony Seiler gets through on the inside of Andre Arleg. Well, he's got to settle down into the car. He's just come out after his pit stop, and it's all a little bit unfamiliar for him. Tony Seiler making hay there while Andre Arleg just goes a little bit off the course, back on it. Tyres a bit dusty, but he'll be settling down, trying to calm himself now. So here's number 1, second place for Carl Wendlinger. Somewhere in front of him on the leaderboard is that number 25 Lister. You won't be able to see it on the racetrack at the moment, but that's the car he's chasing. Conrad Porsche passing, or trying to pass, the number 5 Rock Porsche. And Didier Deforny behind that in the number 33 car, delayed in that pit stop by a problem with the starter, down to 9th place and making up ground quickly. Passes Franz Conrad to grab another position. Oh, and that's the number 22 car, that's Alex Portman. He's just come out after the pit stop, took it over from Stefan Widman. The engine's still running, but it's buried up to the axle. Oh, and that is Christian Grasel, the number 19 Chamberlain car. Separate incidents, it looks like, both of them just coming out after the stop. The cars are heavy and the driver's new to it. Alex Portman's parked it and walked away. His race is over as Ale goes up the inside of Tony Seiler and has a place back from the Chamberlain car. And that is very heavily damaged indeed. Christian Glasel went in hard at the front, and there's a lot of bodywork and not a bit of mechanical problems. Very deep indeed as well for Michel Ligonnès. Can't quite stop it on the escape road. Spins it, keeps it on the tarmac, more or less. Won't be pleased about that. Well, all of these fresh incoming drivers finding these very heavy cars with their new fuel loads and new tyres just a little bit difficult to come to grips with. Here's the race leader, and look at this, he's got a Viper right on his tail. Carl Wendlinger moving up. Well, it's possible that Andy Wallace is struggling with only one side of the car having fresh tyres. The number 25 car is skating about just a little bit, and this looks like the passing manoeuvre from Wendlinger. Wallace denied him. Through the chicane he goes. Well, the Lister has gone well. They tried this one-side change in the hope that it would get them out ahead of the Viper and keep them out. It's done that, but it doesn't seem to be working for Andy Wallace. He's lost quite a lot of ground, and it's quite clear that even with a fresh fuel load, Carl Wendlinger is right there behind him and anxious to do what it seemed the Viper couldn't do in the first hour. Here it comes. This must be it. On the gas now. Still Andy Wallace. Now you know why Lawrence Pierce was so keen to have him in the car. Still Andy Wallace holding off Carl Wendlinger in the Viper. How much longer can he go on? Remember, the temperature outside the car, 34 degrees, 35 degrees. The temperature inside, 60 or 70 degrees. It's a sauna in there, and that's the passing manoeuvre. Andy Wallace, too much of a gentleman to shut that door in Carl Wendlinger's face. It's only a question of time anyway, and he'll just be looking for the earliest pit stop window he can find. Down to second place, halfway through the race. The Lister has led for 90 minutes. It's dropped down to second, and this is Michel Ligonnès flying the Freisinger car. Well, he just completely missed the braking point there and blew the gravel trap. Tony Seiler in the number 18 car is in 4th place. Didier Deforny behind him is in 5th place. In front of them is the Belmondo Porsche. And this is going to be 4th place eventually for Didier Deforny. He's forced his way through on the inside. Tony Seiler takes the curb, but hangs on to the tarmac. And up another place goes Didier Deforny as the local heroes make good. But the bad news up front is that Lister go down to second place. And the second hour isn't going so well for Andy Wallace as the first one did for Julian Bailey in the number 25 car.
Well, the first stint was okay, and we decided not to change the right-hand side tyres, and I think we're suffering from that now. Andy's got no grip at all, but we can't stop until we get the fuel window, and that's in about 5 minutes. So as soon as Andy stops, 4 new tyres go on, Jamie will go out, and I think it'll be much quicker, but that's been our problem.
Fingers crossed for Jamie Campbell-Walter then, as the number 18 Chamberlain car comes in. Lee Amarin back in the seat for the final run to the checkered flag. Andre Ale in the number 4 car, 3rd. Didier Deforny, number 33, 4th. As the pit stops start to change the position. This is the pit stop that Lister wanted. Jamie Campbell-Walter takes over from Andy Wallace, who drove his heart out in the middle hour. And that's the Lister's problem. Oh, it starts. Lawrence Pierce's heart will have stopped along with that engine and got going as it left the pit lane, but certainly no sooner. Blue flags are waving there as the number 33 car moves up and passes Andre Arle for third place. This is exactly what the GLPK team wanted. This is their home circuit. It's their back garden almost, and they really do want to do well. Big crowd, 25,000 odd spectators have turned out to see them do well, and third place is doing very nicely, thank you. Out of the pits comes the number 1 Viper. Didier Defourny still out there waiting to hand over to Vincent Voss. And that's retirement for the number 4 Porsche. A gearbox problem, and apparently an insoluble gearbox problem. The sequential gearbox is not happening for them, and that's the Conrad car as well. Alfred Hager sitting patiently in the driving seat, but they always look there, and it's always the turbo. Here's the Lister. Looking to get back on top of the pile. This is Jamie Campbell-Walter, his first stint in the car, looking for his chance to grab back the lead as the race leader, as was, comes into the pits. This is Didier Defourny out of the car, and some Voss gets in it as Jamie Campbell-Walter comes up behind the number 34 car, his teammate. I wonder what the team orders are for those boys. Pit stop for number 33, and not going again. They're in the car. Well, it had problems with the starter earlier on, and now the mechanics are in the car. It should have left then. It hasn't done. Mike Haterman very quick in this car, drove it for the first hour, keeps to one side as the number 25 car goes through. And they're push starting the number 33. Now, strictly speaking, that's not allowed. And the mechanic falls to the grid. Did you see the body language there? That says absolutely everything. The most eloquent gesture so far today. You're looking at the race leader, I suspect. Oh, off onto the grass and back again. Holds on to that very nicely. Heart-stopping moments all round, and this is a stopping moment. There's fire. Number 25, Lister's on fire. That wasn't the exhaust. It is on fire. Out of the door comes Jamie Campbell-Walter, and the marshals are there. Where's the fire extinguisher, boys? Get on with it, quick. He's pointing, but you shouldn't need to be told. Clouds and clouds of smoke, and it's disaster for Lawrence Pierce and for the Lister team. Bit of a disaster here for the Chamberlain car as it picks its way through the dust cloud. Retirement for the cycle team, number 77. We saw Ernst Palmberger earlier on, but that is parked and it's all over. And this is very nearly all over for Orica. The number 1 car is in the lead of this race and almost on its way to the checkered flag. Turn this corner and he will see the flag raised, and over the line goes the number 1 car to claim the race victory and to retake the championship lead from their teammates as well. And what a turn up that was after that race. The Orica Vipers have done it again, or at least one of them has. The success ballast might well have kept both cars off the top of the podium, but for the fire which stopped the Lister, although third place is a consolation prize at least for Lawrence Pierce. And what a result for Chamberlain as well, coming home in second place. The Viper crew, though, still swamped the top of the points table, and as we pass the halfway point of the year, you'd be a brave man to bet on anyone else being champion this year, although you can perm any one from half a dozen. They're all blue and white. Most of the celebrating up here on this podium, I think, being done by the crew of the Chamberlain car. An excellent second place for them. But the race win and the championship lead went to Orica once again.
No, at the start I didn't want to push because, you know, now we have 90 kilos, so it's very bad for the car. And for that I have to take care about the brake and about everything, so I take a cool start. But after, little by little, when I have less fuel, so less weight, I start to push a little bit, and I came near the lead. And after Carl overtook the Lister, and at the end I was managed my the second I have in front, and no, it was a good weekend. It's nice.
Oschersleben next, another win?
Well, you know, you never know, but of course we will try to do the best as we can. Yes.
Next time out, we're in Germany on August the 8th, and Oschersleben may well be the focal point of the season.